Hey, Mike with Mike's Bags, and today I am reviewing the Slasher by Seva Cornhole. A little backstory in this bag. I'm a podcast listener, and I subscribe to the Big Ask Cornhole podcast. Which, if you like cornhole and you love cornhole content, and you want, they do bag reviews, they do interviews, they talk mostly about ACL events and tournaments, but they do recaps of that as well. Go check them out. I'll put a link in the description for you guys for that Big Ask Cornhole podcast. But I listened to them. They were interviewing. This has been a month or so ago. They were interviewing John, the owner of Big D Bags, who makes the Maryland, which if you watch my review of the Maryland, I absolutely love that bag. It's one of my favorite, if not my favorite bag I've ever thrown yet. Phenomenal, but I absolutely love that. And John made a mention that Seva has a bag coming out that had the same slow side as that Maryland, which piqued my interest. Like, look, I want to know what bag this is. Well, they didn't know. They weren't sure which bag it is, so I did some research, realized it was a Slasher. So as soon as I found that, I went looking to try to find a set. At the time, Seva had released bags. They had sold some at the ACL Worlds, but they didn't have them available online. They were holding off their release till later, and I tried my best to get my hands on a set early because I wanted to get the review out before they did the release, because if this bag was anywhere close to the Maryland, I wanted you guys to know about it so you could jump on that release. I was unsuccessful at that, but I grabbed a set when they released them. I didn't mention it because I didn't want to mention the bag and promote it and hype it up and then get the bag and realize it's not as good as what it was. And I've done that once before, got burned by that. I didn't want to do that again. So kept my mouth shut until I got my hands on the bag. So here the Slashers are. Let's go ahead and review these, break this bag down. We'll start with slow size. I mentioned this is that same carpet you find in the Maryland. I'm gonna call it a 6-speed. It's a true hybrid carpet. It has control. Right? It plays like a 6-speed, but you have the control because of the way the material's designed. You've got kind of two different elevations of material. Fast side. This is a unique material. I didn't recognize it. I still don't recognize it. The bag, I think NOLA Bags uses this material. I think it's the fast side of the Jester. I'm not positive. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's not a real popular material. I think I've seen it from time to time. I don't know other than the Jester, and I could be wrong there. It's been a while since I've tried the NOLA Bags. But it's a fast side. It's a fast material. Seva calls it a 9-speed. I'm going with the 9-speed. It's fast. It slides at the board. It pushes through. Great for collecting. It's a wonderful fast side material. So I've got about a 6-9-speed bag. Both materials play really well in humid conditions and humidity. So if you live in an area where humidity is an issue, that's what I love about this carpet is it stays pretty true and consistent through all board conditions. Doesn't really slow down much at all. So you've got a bag you can still play even as conditions change or boards get sticky. You can still keep playing it. It'll keep moving. Template on this. This is a medium template bag, but it's a pretty thin bag, a fairly floppy bag. So there's a ton of floppy, right? This is a very floppy bag. There's not a lot of fill in here. So you can really taco over really well. So if you like floppier bags, that's what you got here. The fill in this bag. The fill it's a mixed fill, but it's mostly that flat disc fill. And so there's a flat fill and there's a flat disc fill. I don't know what to call them other than that. The flat disc fill is actually, people get confused. The flat disc fill is almost like a plate. It's completely fat, very thin, just round, thin, flat. There's not a lot of volume. It's not raised up at all. The flat fill is more like if you take a bead and then you flatten the top and bottom and you squeeze it down so you get two flat sides, but it's still got some thickness to it. This is mostly that flat disc fill, which is my least favorite fill of all because I find that fill just compresses. It doesn't spread out. So when I go to get a grip on the bag, and I butterfly grip, so I always squeeze on the middle, it doesn't expand and fill out. It stays pretty loose about it. So I have to really shake the bag to get it now fill out and now lock the bag down. The other problem with that flat disc fill is it's not very hole friendly. It wants to just set and compress because you've got flat fill that just sits. It doesn't have what's on top of each other. It doesn't need to move. It'll set. It's fine. It's happy, content sitting there. It doesn't need to move. When you've got beads, you've got some volume to it. If beads sit on top of each other, they're not going to sit there, right? It's like putting two marbles on top. They won't sit. It's going to want one. It wants the top wants to fall and move. When it falls, it knocks the other one, knocks it out, and it just creates a cascade effect that they all fall, and eventually that bag just slowly drips in the hole. I didn't get that as much with this bag because of that fill. So I wasn't a fan. When I first picked the bag up, I'm not a big fan of this fill. And honestly, when I got these bags, my expectation was the Maryland, so I had a super high expectation, and I try to go in these reviews as unbiased as I can, but it's tough sometimes. And so my expectation was really high, the bar was really high, and the first impression was like, I don't like this fill. I'm not real happy with the bag. So it leads me to playability on this, and I'm going to start real quickly with the negatives. I talked a little bit about, stick with me with this, okay? Stick with me through the negatives, and let me get to the positives. I promise you it's worth it. So the fill is the biggest negative, as I mentioned, and honestly, it was the hole for it. Around the hole, the bag just wants to go up, and it just wants to sit, and it doesn't drip in. If I had enough speed of the bag, because the bag is floppy, right? So it will grab the hole it's been around. If I had enough speed, it would melt in. If I did, and it sat there, once it sat, it was a little difficult to collect. I had to be more aggressive to go after the bag to collect it. Just sliding bags in didn't always get it. Sometimes it would, sometimes it didn't. Going after it, I have to come across and try to grab it and clip it and maybe cut it in. Problem is this bag is so floppy, and that flat fill, it's a very forgiving fill, which I didn't mention. It has very little kick to it, if no kick at all. So if you don't throw a flat bag, this bag is wonderful for you. The problem is it's very difficult to cut. So when I put a tilt on the bag to throw a cut to come across the board, the bag just hit, flatten out, wants to run straight, and then I end up with 2 bag studs. So stuck on one side, on the opposite side of the board, makes it even harder to clutch. So I had a hard time really going after it and grabbing the bags and pulling them in like I'm used to. I had to change a little bit. But, and the other thing I'll say is if you get a blocker up there, which you can throw blockers from time to time, collectability. If you come in, just clip a corner, the bags want to accordion up, spin around. They don't want to go through. You've got to be more intentional to come and collect more into the middle of the bag and hit it there, and then you can push it through. They're very collectible that way. Just clipping a corner is not collectible. Now, that leads me into the positives of the bag. Is it's a great bag for playing the get around game. If you don't have a roll or a flop game, maybe you're not great at throwing cut shots, but you're playing an opponent who throws a dirty style game and you want a bag that's easy at sneaking around bags, that's what the slasher does. When there's a blocker up there, I step out, aim for the corner of the blocker, and you just kind of go into it, bully the blocker out of the way, put your bag in, and leave that blocker there, and you can do it over and over again. You don't have to throw a tilt. You don't throw a cut. It does a great job. If there's a blocker, maybe you don't want to step out. If you can just see part of the hole, that blocker's a little more on your opponent's side. If you just get this bag just to grab the corner of the hole with enough speed, it'll spin around and melt back in. It really does do that well. You just got to make sure you got enough speed. Be confident when you throw that, because if you miss it, it's going to fly off the bat. But if you always got the confidence and you can catch that hole, it'll spin around coming in. If it spins around and sits, then you got to be a little more aggressive with your shots, maybe an airmail drag or something to try to collect it. But it does great for getting around bags. It is, if you got the speed and you get enough of the bag in the hole, it will melt to the hole. This material is extremely hole friendly. The fill, not so much. They kind of counteract it. I already talked about that. I don't want to get into that too much. But for me, this is a bag. And honestly, doing these videos and these throws, it doesn't really showcase what the bag. I mean, I did. I put a lot of bags in the hole. I did a really good job at that. But honestly, when I took this out and played this in a competition and played this at League Night, that's when I really saw the bag shine. Because initially, I did this recording before I actually threw the bag in competition. And I was, I wasn't super happy with the bag. My expectation was so high. The bag didn't live up to it. I was ready to come tell you guys, this is an okay bag. It's not a good bag. Then I took it out and played in competition, and it really shined at how well the bag is at going in the hole, what I can do. Even though it's not a great shot shaping bag, it's not a bag that you're cutting, not a bag you're rolling, not a bag you're flopping. Like I said, just the get around shot, the ability to get around blockers with just stepping out and using angles and not having to really worry about control with the tilt. So if you're a player that doesn't really know how to get the angles, the tilts, the back load, the front load, the side tilt, or whatever, but you want to play a get-around style game, that's what this bag's designed for. And it does a great job of it. So I was really impressed. To me, this is a solid bag. It's a great bag. It really is. I highly recommend it up to you guys. It's tough because it doesn't live up to the Maryland. And it's not fair to the slasher to compare it to the Maryland, but I threw the Maryland first. But the beauty is, the slasher is ACL stamped, the Maryland is ACO, TCL, or non-stamped. So depending on what event I go to, I now have a similar bag that I can throw in all those events. So for that reason alone, if you play ACL events and you like my review of the Maryland, but you don't play ACO or TCL, get yourself a set of slashers. You're going to love this, but it really is a great bag. I really love throwing it. It does do a great job of getting the hole. It's a super friendly bag, super controllable bag. It's a great bag that pretty much anybody can throw it, from slow bag throwers to fast bag throwers. Everybody's gonna be able to throw this bag and control it, and I think most people are gonna like it. As long as you like that flat disc fill, as long as you can get used to that, I think you'll be fine. But all in all, I love the bag. I do recommend it to you guys, so go check it out. Now, where do you get it? Seva has a website. SevaCornhole.com is the website. I'll put a link in the description for you guys. The bags are $85 for a set, and as of recording this, they were in stock. So Seva has them in stock on hand right now. $85 plus it was like just under $10 shipping, so less than $95 shipped to you, which is a great price. It's kind of it's not the cheapest, but it's on the cheaper end. It's a little cheaper than normal for a set of bags. ACL stamp bag for $95 shipped to you is a phenomenal price. It's a great bag. It's going to be a bag that when I go to ACL events, it'll probably be in my backpack most of the time because I do love the way the bag plays. And so if you play ACL events and you've got yourself a set of Marylands, you love them, you definitely get yourself a slasher so you can have a similar bag for your ACL events. So check them out. If you've thrown them, I love to hear your feedback, what you like, good or bad. I always love to hear your guys' opinions on bags. I thank you guys so much for support, and I thank you for watching.